Got the Bible here too.
Oh yeah, stays there. Yeah,
That's awesome.
stays there, brother. I try to anything that I do, any avenue that I do travel, I try to look at it through a certain lens, and like it's really easy. Like especially with some of the things we've been doing, it's really easy to kind of get sucked into thinking that it's all you, it's all you and it's on your shoulders. And, because you do start to do some pretty powerful things, some pretty like creative things, some shit that can trick you into thinking that you are, the beginning and the end.
You're the fucking man, kind of.
Yeah, it can get you there. And it's a beautiful feeling to have. But at the same time, I try to keep my eyes on the creator, appreciate the creation, and try to come alongside. But I definitely try to keep myself out of like tricking myself into thinking I'm some fucking almighty powerful blah blah blah, just because the light got shed on me a little bit,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. It's a way to keep you humble.
Yeah.
Right. Keep you the
Right.
humility aspect.
Right.
Something out there is more powerful than you are. There's more that's going on.
Yeah.
And I imagine too that's like when it's not going your way, that's helpful too.
100%.
Yeah.
100%, because you're like, all right, dude, I can't do it. And it gives you a place to go in your weakness. You don't always have to be so damn strong and enlightened all the time, you know what I mean? Because life's hard.
Yeah.
Life's hard, dude. You're going to get punched in the teeth. And if you ain't got nothing to look to or nothing to comfort you inside of those dark places, I don't know. Things can get a little weird and twisty. I've experienced dark with, and I've experienced dark without, and I'd much rather experience with a place to look up to and be like, just
Right.
surrender to a little.
So when you say you've experienced it without, does that mean like you weren't always a believer, or
Right, yeah. So
okay.
when I went to prison when I was 24, and I got stuck in the hole for 9 months. And I was 9 months in the hole, and it was like a dark time for me.
Damn.
And I knew of God, and obviously, your parents, they try to introduce you to him and blah, 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 and all the things, but I was like too busy for any of that, So I was in the hole for that amount of time. I was by myself, so to speak. I wasn't, but I was, and it was like, I felt on the cusp of losing my mind, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like actually, losing myself in those moments because I had nothing to turn to or nothing to like lean on, nobody to pray to. It was just me trying to remember me. Because when you get in the hole, there's no shaving or grooming or anything like that. So after a while, you start to kind of, and the mirrors they give you are those plastic mirrors that already warp the reflection.
Yeah.
And so you get in there and you kind of forget, like, for a minute, like,
What do you look like?
Who am I? Like,
Yeah.
what do I look like? What am I supposed to look like? You know what I mean? It was a super challenging time for me, Yeah.
Yeah, there's something to be said for like the solitude, right? I don't know if you've seen this, but now like guys are doing these darkness retreats, and it's like but they go for 2 or 3 days,
Right.
And they have like these profound breakthroughs after, but you're like in that motherfucker for 9 months.
Yeah, and not of my own accord. You know what I mean? Like.
What did you find? Was that the beginning of this? Was that the beginning of like finding something?
No. because I
Finding
was
faith.
like, it was the beginning of something, but I've still to this day haven't been able to put my finger on
Yeah. But
what was exposed to me in that moment, because I was too hardened. I was hardened in there to a place where I had the idea of like, I'm gonna do my own time. I don't need God to do my time for me. And so I would like see people reading their Bibles and stuff on the yard, and I would like think of them as weak, like you're fucking, you can't do your own time, you know. You
Yeah.
come in here and you try to lean on God to do it for you, and then you're gonna get out of here and you're gonna be the same savage that got himself in here. And I think that's pussy, and I think that's fake and hypocritical, and that's part of what I can't stand. You know what I mean? Like about.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a big value to me to be who you say you are. You know what I mean? And everybody comes in there and they go, oh my God, now I'm going to open this Bible up and have God do it, make me feel better. You know what I mean? But as soon as it's over, as soon as the darkness is over, you're going to go right back to your bullshit. You know what I mean? And so, like, I didn't want to be that. So I was intentionally staying away. I was like, I will not do that. I will do my own time.
Yeah.
So I don't know if in that moment he was like, if he just was holding me up, dude. You know what I mean? I imagine he was just kind of, yeah, I know you don't want to see me right now, but I got you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like holding me from falling on my face, because I felt like I was dying a little bit. Like there was something inside of me that was dying. When I got out is when my dad and I had a good friend who was, running into Jesus, bumping into Jesus, getting a cool relationship. And him and I had actually went to prison at the same time. We were on the same case. And he got out before I did. And then when I got out, him and my dad were just like, come on. And I was like, no, until I said yes. And then I said yes, and I got smacked up, dude, with some truth, man. You know?
That's hilarious. That reminds me of the Tupac song. He talks about his homie that, I think he switches to Islam, right?
Yeah.
But he's like, I can't remember what song that is, but he's like, you used to be the man and we used to do all these things together. We used to holler at girls together, and now you're all about God or Allah or whatever it is. And he's like, you're telling me to, walk this certain path. But there's a level of respect that you hear in that song.
Yeah.
Okay, so you didn't find it in there, but certainly something changed in you from when you entered and when you left, or...
Yes. Something definitely changed.
do you feel like you were a different person coming out of the hole?
I was probably worse.
Really?
Yeah. I was probably worse for a moment. Like I was surrounded with nothing and just being in that dark place and like having conversations, like a little hallucinations and stuff in my mind. I was like probably a little bit worse when I got out. Immediately got out. And then I started to like appreciate being out, which like started to shift my perspective a bit, And they actually ended up transferring me out of the prison. They wouldn't let me out on the yard because my little brother was there with me, and we were just acting up a little bit, too crazy. That's what got me put in there. And so they forced me to switch prisons, which was probably a good thing. They shipped me across the country to Oregon, and Oregon was like completely different, man. I was like in Sheridan, where it's just rocks and dirt and barbed wire fence. It was an aggressive prison. Somehow I got shifted to like, there's grass, you know what I mean? It's like green, you can walk around. And I don't know, something about the little environment shift probably assisted in like pulling my guard down a little, pulling that like the vigilance out. Because I was in Florence, where I was. It was very like.
My uncle used to work at Florence.
you got to be careful. You know what I mean? You got to watch because it's like it's a very hostile environment.
Yeah, they send people from all over the country there, right?
Right. And so when I got shipped to Oregon, it was less hostile and more like, people were there so that they could get out. In Florence, it's like there's a lot of lifers in there. Half the population isn't getting out.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how I got shipped there, especially off of like a bad behavior kind of thing, but it was pretty heaven sent, so to speak.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Florence is interesting because, as I said, my uncle and my cousin used to work there as in the maximum security and
the one that goes underground.
There were security guards there or corrections officers there, and they told me like, they used to see some shit. Obviously, I think they got El Chapo there right now.
Yeah.
When he was coming in, they drove by me. And then I didn't realize that's what it was, but I saw the caravan. And then on the news that night, I was like, oh, yeah, they're transporting,
Yeah, dude.
What I'm curious about, though, I don't think I've ever heard this story from you, but I would maybe like a little bit of background on how did you get there? How did you get to that point?
In prison?
Yeah.
It's a long story, but...
Yeah.
If you want to hear it, we can go down that road.
Well, I just think it's an aspect of what it probably helps paint a picture to talk about where we are now and the stuff that we really want to talk about with like the deep inner work.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. So. I was born into a situation, my father was a dealer. He was a dope dealer. My grandfather was a dope dealer. I never knew anything other than that version of man. You know what I mean? Like I never knew a hard worker, like let's say a laborer, blue collar. Like I only saw like drugs and money and women, and it was aggressive. And my mom ended up getting addicted to cocaine in a bad way. And she ended up leaving us when I was a young kid at like 5. And so I was only raised by my father and my grandfather. So it was like a pack of wolves raising me. So I had, not only did I have this thing to look at as my target for masculinity, but then I also had an absence of nurture, like an absence of like love and softness that could have given me a little bit of a different way to navigate life,
Right.
So I was only aspiring to be one thing for my whole life. I never had a dream of like being a baseball player or a fighter, where I actually ended up being. I didn't have any of those things until a certain time in my life. But up to then, I was trying to mirror my life after my father and my grandfather, because that's what I knew. That's what I thought my target should be. You know?
And where was that? Was that in Puerto Rico? Or?
That was in California. And my dad ends up moving us out here to Colorado in a day's notice, 1 day's notice.
Wow.
Because he was making drops around the city in LA, and he was being followed by a helicopter and a van. He did like a bunch of maneuvers to be able to identify that he was actually being followed. And he gets home and he's like, pack your shit, we're leaving. And I'm like, leaving where? I'm like 12 at this time, like got friends and shit, I'm like, where are we going?
Yeah.
He's like, get in the car, pack your stuff, get in the car. The rest of the stuff will follow us to wherever we go. We end up driving to Colorado in literally 24 hours notice and getting here. And then when my dad got here, he knew it was over for him. Like he knew, he was smart like that. He's the only guy I knew that never got busted.
Wow.
My grandfather was in prison. I was visiting him in and out of prison since I was, 6.
Wow.
But my father had like I don't know what you would call it. Like he was into Santeria a lot, right? So he was into like a little bit of dark witchcraft.
La brujeria.
Yeah, brujeria shit. So he was like always know ahead of time like when to play. He would listen to it, and that was the thing. He would listen to like these visions that his madrina would tell him about.
Yeah.
Like they're on to you. Okay, he would stop. They're coming to get you. Okay, he would stop for a while. You have to leave. And he would go, and he like would listen, and so he always escaped like the prison time or the charge. He's never even been charged, But when he got here, he put it a whole way. Never touched it again. He, like literally when we left California, he made a decision and stuck with the decision. And he took whatever money he had made, whatever money he had left, and he bought a home in Louisville, Colorado, and had it. The home was like paid for, and got a job at 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven and working in a factory.
Wow.
My dad,
Yeah.
who I only knew as one thing, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so like the shift in this energy, I was like not okay with, even though it was the right thing. I was like, what the fuck, dude? Like, now what am I pointing at? Like, now what am I? Who am I? What am I going to be, Because at this point, my dad's like all the way out the game. So he's not going to help me.
But it was almost more respectable if he had stayed in the game or something.
That's how I thought.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck, dude? You going to switch it up on me at 12? I'm a 12, 13-year-old kid. I don't know shit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that he's literally trying to save my life. I think he's trying to ruin my life. You know what I mean? I think a bunch of weird things that I wasn't able to actually see the sacrifice that he made for us until much later in life. But I was still chasing the thing. I was like, oh, just because you're this now, you're this kind of guy now, I'm still going to go try to be that kind of guy. Mm-hmm. And so when I decided to go and try to be that kind of guy, he wants nothing to do with it. He's not going to like teach me, Because what I thought was like, all right, grandfather, father, I'm next in line. Like, I'm next in line. So you're going to show me how to do this and do this well and keep myself out of trouble.
Do it the right way.
But when we got to Colorado, he decided to make a left turn and take this other path in his life. And I'm out here trying to figure it out on my own a little bit. Like, I still want to be that kind of guy. My dad's not going to help me. I'm going to figure it out on my own. And so I'm stumbling. I'm getting in trouble a bunch, like little misdemeanors here, little dumb shit. I got this anger inside of me, this violence inside of me. So I'm getting in a bunch of fights and all the things, and not really trying to like find myself, trying to figure out what it looks like to be a man, and then like not wanting to be this man working at 7-Eleven and shit like that. But I remember having this picture of this other man and not really knowing that guy either because he won't talk to me about it, So I'm fucking like in la la land trying to figure out my way and tripping and stumbling a bunch. I mean, I think I had probably over 20 arrests before I was 21, you know,
wow.
A bunch of little charges. I end up getting caught with some dope when I was, I think, 21. And they sent me to this boot camp to do. I had got a 4-year sentence, but to get out of the sentence, they gave me the option of doing this boot camp. And this boot camp, nobody passes. It's like designed for you to fail. Like they want you to fail.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's fucked up. They rigged the system.
50 guys entered in, and only 13 of us graduated. But I made it out by the skin of my teeth. I made it out there, and probably me making it out of there was one of the worst things that could have happened to me because it robbed me of that consequence that I needed as a young man. I needed longer than 6 months to. Like, the 6 months I was in was just more fighting, and I was, like, good at fighting. I was, like, good at hard things, you know what I mean? Like, I was good at obstacle courses. I was good at long runs. I was strong. I was athletic. Like, they couldn't break me down physically. And that's what they try to do. They try to break your mind. They try to break your body in those things, and they couldn't do that. I think that robbed me And so when I got out, what I do, I went right back because I'm stupid. I don't know what I don't have a mentor in it.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm headed. Like, I just went right back to it, and things got bigger, way bigger, and bigger and bigger. And I'm making real money now, and blah, 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 thinking this is my way. This is the life. I made it. I did it, you know?
I imagine that's like just adding to your cookie jar, though, too. Like, you're like, okay, you motherfuckers tried to break me, and I came out of that, too. Right? Like, you're like...
Right, so there's certain version of me that's being forged. You know what I mean? Like, all throughout my instances. And now when I look back, I look at all of these moments, and I'm so grateful for all of them in the weirdest of ways. You know what I mean? Because it is who I am today. You know, but I get out, things are getting bigger. I'm starting to do business kind of like across, like, and internationally. And so, long story short there, I ended up having this guy inside of our organization turn on me because he got caught on the way back crossing the border, Mexico, with a shipment, and they did a controlled delivery to me and my brother. And that's how I ended up in Florence, because it was international across the border.
Wow.
Import, export stuff. Yeah. And so they gave me a federal sentence. It wasn't a state sentence. It was a federal sentence.
It made it worse. Yeah. And that's exactly why you ended up in Florence.
That's why I was in Florence. Yeah.
And so, from there you got out, and then they roped you into the church a little bit, or they I guess you could say roped me in, because they definitely had to do their work to get me there. I wasn't just trying to go, you know. Yeah.
But they got me in there, man, and initially when I went in there, I was like, this is fucking bullshit. I would like point at people and I go, I know you. I already know who you are, and you're in here. You're fake. You're fake. You're fake.
Wow.
You're fake. You're fake. I know all of you people. You guys used to buy it from me. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, I had my guard up again, but I was a hard dude by this time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That time in the hole, the boot camp, all the things. I was like hardened. I was a hardened human by then, raised by wolves. You know, so there was no. I went in there with like this kind of face, like, oh,
yeah,
well, this is. Let me show you why you're wrong. You know what I mean? And then just week by week, I would try to simply listen to the logic in the message, because I would like get confused with the stories. You know, the stories would like send me down a place, and I'd try to make sense of the story, and I'd be like, that doesn't make any damn sense. The stories, but then the logic, like the other piece of the sermon was like kind of like the plug this into your life, try it for a week. If you hate it, fine. You don't. And so I would do that. I would go, okay, I'm gonna plug this thing into my life for a second. And then, dude, little by little, I start to get like, I don't know, like, you know, some aha. Wow. You were right about that. Okay, you were right about that. Well, shit. What else are you right about? And it started to become simply logic at first for me, because it had to make a lot of sense. And then once I was bought into like the path or the methods, it was then, and it was me getting bought into the paths and the methods, and a certain thing that was happening, a certain softening that was happening to me on the mats. Actually becoming a professional fighter, actually becoming a fighter, which is happening at the same time as me getting introduced to the church.
Wow.
Because I have this shit in me that like I walk around with and that people can feel, and it's like, ooh, I don't want to be next to that guy. I don't want to be next to that guy. Yeah. And I'm always like looking for something and hyper vigilant to where it's like uncomfortable. And so I'm going to church with that same hyper vigilance, but at the same time I am starting to train as a fighter, which ended up becoming my profession, but I'm starting to like dive into this other thing because I'm starting to recognize that I have no options. Like, one of the reasons why I even got on the mats was because who the fuck wants to hire a 2-time felon? You know what I mean? I've already had I'm not getting anything worthwhile done with my life. I'm 28, you know? I had started fighting before I went to prison a little bit, just playing around. And when I got out, I was like, fuck it, you know? And so I get on these mats and I'm getting my fucking ass beat, dude. Like, beat down. And it feels so good. Like, it felt so good to just get it off of me. And so then I could walk the rest of the day with like this softness about me because I got it out for a second. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so that softness plugged in with like this logic that I'm hearing inside of the church and inside of from my buddy, and like those two things pairing up together kind of created this situation where I was able to allow something else into my heart because it was no longer such
Yeah, you
a
had to
brick
create
wall.
that space.
Yeah, it wasn't a brick wall anymore. I like got it, you know, boom, boom. It just all the things that come along with the fight game took it off of me, and like broke the wall down a little bit so that something else could find their way in, and that's when I like started to have an actual relationship with Jesus, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that has carried me, like as shallow as it started off to be, is the depth in which it is at this point is like undeniable. And some of this work, you know,
Yeah.
like when you talk about the things that you and I are going to talk about, most Christians are going to go, that's black magic, that's sacrilegious, you're talking about energy, you're talking about this, you're talking about that, you're not talking about God, blah blah blah. So like on the front end, like when you first start to drink from the cup of like quantum physics,
Yeah.
energy,
Yeah.
you first start to drink of that, it starts to, you almost like can trick yourself into thinking that you're the thing, like we talked about earlier. Like you are the,
I'm running the show.
I am
here.
running
Yeah.
the show.
Yeah.
I am creating the life that I want for myself. But the more drinks you take, and the further down you get closer to the bottom of that glass, and it takes you right back to.
Yeah.
So a little bit of science will have you fucked up, but a lot of science,
Yeah.
a lot of it,
Right.
there's nowhere else that it leads than to, you know, whoever you call God, you know.
Yeah. I've got this book that's just like the overlapping phrases of like Lao Tzu, Jesus, the Buddha, and I think that's what I found on my journey as well, is that I went the other way though. I went into the mindfulness and the science, and then I got my degree in neuroscience, right? And I was just like, man, and the deeper I dug into the neuroscience and then into the quantum mechanics, I was like, you can't fucking explain any of this other than through some sort of spiritual aspect of something.
Yeah.
Something is bigger
Yeah.
out there controlling things. And I looped around into like, I always believed in Jesus, but I don't know if I believed in like the power and the stories and, you know, what it was. And I don't know, which I kind of think is what you were getting at in the beginning, is like, I don't know that I necessarily believe that all the details of the stories, but that's not important, because what's important is the bottom, the underlying message,
Right.
which is the same for a lot of religions, right? Yeah. I think what's really interesting in your story that I hear, though, is a through line, is these sort of core values that you have. Like, even as 12-year-old Vinnie, like, even being raised by wolves at that point, like, something that has carried all the way through until I would say probably even now is this value of integrity.
Yeah.
Like, being what you say you are, right? And it almost feels like that's kind of like what was underlying in some of the judgments, but also underlying in like why you feel you had to stay or be a certain type of way. Does that sound right?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I despised dishonesty.
Yeah.
I just, because, you know, dude, like, you know, my mom, she left when I was 5, but she's like, I'm coming to get you this day. Never show up. I'm coming to get you this day. Never show up. And I got a little brother. He's 3 years younger. And watching him in pain, you know what I mean? Waiting at the window in pain, waiting for her to show up, or and her never showing up, and me having to pull him away. She's like, nah, she's not fucking coming. She said she was coming. She's not fucking coming. She's a liar. You know what I mean? Like, all of these things. My dad, like, switching it up all of a sudden and becoming this, you know, he started going to church immediately when we got here. And I'm like, motherfucker, I was just watching, I just was listening to you get your dick sucked in the other room just the other day in California when we were throwing a party. Like, get out of here with this, dude. And so I hated it so much. I hated, like the thought of being fake or the thought of being a liar so much that I didn't allow for people to, like, evolve and move into anything new. Mm-hmm. So, because as soon as they started evolving and trying to become something different, you know, there's space in there. It takes a second, and it doesn't feel or sound like all the way right yet because they're not there yet. They don't know how to do it. And I used to think that as, like, a bad thing, and now I realize that is the thing. That is the thing.
It's the evolution.
It's the thing, and it should never stop. You should always be becoming, right? And so, like, I just, you know, I had that fixed mindset. Like, well, no, we are this, and so we're going to stay this. And we're going to be this, and we're going to stand on this because that's what truth looks like, and that's what integrity is, and all the things. And, you know, that rigidity was what I needed to survive as a kid. But there definitely came a point in time in which it was no longer serving me, and I was glad to have gotten to a space of, like, love for myself and for others to, like, allow for people to become, you know, people to change, people to think differently and move differently. It's, like, such a beautiful thing when you think about it. But I was like, I didn't allow for it for a long, long time. Yeah.
You said before you even went in that you started hitting the mats and you started opening up a little bit there. And then did you go right back? Once you got out, did you go right back to the mats?
No, I didn't. So I was still trying to, like, figure out how am I going to make it? You know, what am I going to do here? So I got a job at my buddy's auto body shop, painting cars. I had never painted a thing in my life, right? So I'm painting these cars, and I'm painting them the wrong color and shit. And, dude, he's getting so mad at me. You remember Christian, right?
Yeah.
So it's his shop. He's actually the guy him and I were on the same case. We went to prison together. And so he got out before me, was doing, you know, plugging into this, and had an auto body shop, and he brought me in as a painter, which is, like, you know, those guys make the most money in the auto body shop. He was just trying to get me something where I could wet my beak a little bit and get some cash flow rolling.
Right.
But I had never done it before, so I'm over here picking the wrong tints and spraying cars the wrong way, and he's getting mad at me, and we end up fighting in the paint shop one day. And so then I leave there, you know, and I got another buddy. I had a nice network of people to, like, talk to when I got out to actually do things worthwhile, not, like, work at McDonald's or something, you know what I mean? But, like, actually have friends with means that can provide me an opportunity. So I went from that job, and I went to, like, running a moving company for another one of my buddies, just kind of management level, like, just make sure everybody's doing what they need to do kind of shit, you know. But they were paying me pretty good, you know. And again, like, I'm still trying to learn, so, you know, I'm getting in fights, you know, because it's a little bit of a volatile business, the moving business. It's like very shady. You know what I mean? Like, they trick you into these contracts, and they make you pay all this money, and if you don't pay the money, they hold your stuff. And so I'm managing that. I am that, right? So then here I am spending more time just being in this, like, place of a lack of integrity, right? Because it's dark and it's cheating, and I hate it.
That's interesting, because that underlying core value that you have, I can't imagine that sat well with you.
I didn't like it, dude. I don't like stealing from people. Even when I was selling dope, man, I would be like, I never took from anybody. Like, I always was like, I used to think of myself as the right kind of bad. You know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna fuck you.
Yeah.
You know, I might beat your ass. I did that one time. I beat the brakes off of this dude because he was talking to me crazy. But at the end of that, I threw him all his dope that he paid for. I just threw it on him. I was like, I'm not gonna rob from you, but I will fuck you up if you disrespect me, type of thing. But anyways, I'm stuck in this moving company, and I get in this crazy situation. I end up having to hurt this dude, and I'm on parole, and he calls the cops. I go through this whole court process, dude. As the company paid for my lawyer, but I have to go to trial because I'm on parole. I can't take any plea. If I take a plea, they send me back to prison. And I have to finish out my sentence, which was another 3 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I was like, fuck.
Sounds like you're kind of rolling the dice a
I
little
was
bit.
rolling the dice.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, well, okay, well, I got to go to trial. And in trial, I was guilty as they come. I was guilty. But in trial, the guy and the group of friends that I ended up having to handle that day tried to make it out to like I Bruce Lee all three of them at the same time, and I was kicking them and they were flying through the air and all that. They put so many extras on it that the jury knew they were lying and knew they were putting all this extra on, and I came back not guilty, bro. I was expecting to get locked up and taken away right then. Go finish your sentence. Not guilty verdict. I was like, what? And I was guilty as shit, but these dumbasses like just put too much on it, right? Anyways, I end up having to leave that situation because those more and more instances were coming up where the workers and the management, the workers and the office are two different entities. Mm-hmm. The people are on those trucks, moving, working, breaking their backs all day long. You know, they expect to get paid and get paid on time. Well, the owners of the company, they try to swindle every little thing that they can, right? And I'm in the middle having to deliver these messages. And so it looks like I'm the one making those decisions. I'm not. I'm just working there.
Right.
You know what I mean? But these guys want somebody to take their stuff out on. And I'm just not in the place for people to take anything out on me because I'm not mature enough mentally not to want to get into some altercation with you. So I ended up leaving that job, and it was after that I was like, okay, I'm tapped out here. Like, there's nothing for me to do here. You know what I mean? Like, I'm starting to dabble back into the game a little bit. I'm making a few little deals here and there, looking over my shoulder, like panicked, bro, looking over my shoulder. And I knew right then I don't have it anymore for this. I don't have the balls anymore to like roll the dice like this anymore because I'm so terrified of looking over my shoulder at all times that like it's not worth it. The money that I'm making, it's just not worth it. So I had no options left. I was like, fuck it, dude, I'm gonna go in here and go into this gym and just train. You know, initially I wasn't like really even thinking about going all the way back and thinking about becoming a professional fighter, but I still got in there and I kept going because I didn't have shit else to do, and I kept going, and all of a sudden I'm starting to get invited to these teams, and I'm starting to get invited to this, and just based off of like the skills that I'm developing, and eventually they invite me to the Grudge fight team, which back in the day was like number one fight team in the world.
Yeah, I saw you post a picture the other day. It was a dope ass picture. It was with Trevor and Dwayne, and was Brandon in that, or
Brandon?
Somebody with
yeah.
Is that Grudge?
Yeah,
that's
Grudge.
Yeah.
George St. Pierre, everybody trained at Rashad Evans, John Jones, like the best of the best trained here, and I got to be on this team, and so one thing led to another, and that started to be the avenue in which I decided to pour the last bit of what I had left in a desperate attempt to like make something of myself. You know what I mean? And dude, it worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you let go of the game, and you got invited to Grudge. I guess they're like sort of parallel, but they're kind of different, right? Like you talked about, like Christianity will look at something like the work, they might judge it.
Yes.
So how do you get introduced to what we'll say is the work?
So I was first introduced to the work through a Christian organization called the Crucible Project. And this was, so I just retired from fighting. It was 2013 at this point. And I don't recognize how healing fighting is for me and how much I actually need it, because I'm still a very full of triggers individual, right?
Yeah.
Sensitive person that would like explode at any minute. And so I'm getting in street fights and shit. And one time I got into, two times. One time I got into a fight with this dude in a parking lot or whatever, and I'm, doing my thing, and somebody looks in and they go, I feel sorry for your daughter, and my daughter's in the back seat.
Mm-hmm.
She's actually in the car, and I'm like, fuck, you're right. So do I. I feel sorry for my daughter. I feel sorry for her. And then another instance, like 2 weeks later, dude cuts me off. I follow him, like fucking drag him out of his car, and slam him on the hood of his car. All of a sudden I hear screaming, ah! I look, it's my fucking daughter. I had blacked out so badly I didn't even know she was in the car anymore. You know what I mean? And it was like something. I have to change this, dude. Like what is going on? I can't continue to do life like this. I'm gonna fucking kill someone or something, and my daughter's life's gonna be ruined forever. And so I went on this weekend to try to become safe. Like, they asked me, what do you want? I was like, I just want to be safe. I just want to be a safe person for my daughter to grow up with. You know what I mean? I didn't have any real relationships other than her at that moment, and my son, but he was older. So I was just like, I want to be safe. I want to be safe. And I went through that, and that was my first intro to that, which was right around 2013, so which about 10 years ago. And it was a lot of trauma work. It was a lot of digging up the things of the past that made me who I was, getting really familiar with why I respond certain ways to certain things, bringing grace and forgiveness to my father, my mother, my grandfather for what I thought was like setting me up to be this thing that I was,
Uh-huh.
And so I had to go, and the work is all about going back, go back. See who you had to become, forgive yourself for that, and try to see yourself in the light that God actually sees you in. And that was hard for me, because I couldn't really get a clear picture on that, but I had to keep revisiting it and revisiting it and revisiting it and revisiting it, and like looking at baby pictures before all the shit went down, that I had to become a savage, like trying to get familiar with like who was I initially supposed to be, like what was my light then? Was I gentle? Was I loving? Was I curious? Like what was I? Who was I? And so when I started to get a little bit familiar with who I was and who I had to become, and I spent 10 years simply doing that. It changed my life. That one weekend changed my life so much that I became a leader inside of that organization and ran weekends for the last 10 years, over and over and over again. Inner city Chicago weekends were like, it's crazy, the stories. We went to Africa and ran weekends. I went everywhere and was doing weekends for this organization. And so I fell in love with the soul work, so to speak, inside of that time frame. And there's something missing, right? It was simply a dive backwards. This is why I had to be this. This is why I had to be that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really important.
Yeah.
You better know about all of that before you start trying to create anything. Because if you start creating, which is what I this is the part of the work that I'm in now, like moving forward, and you don't know what about you is going to try to trip you up at a deep, deep level, it's going to get you every time.
Yeah, that's for me very, very real. Is like I imagine this is kind of what you mean, but for me, what I hear is, in my experience, the things that I was choosing to focus my goals on were at the root of it. The desire was to fill the void or the trauma that I had experienced, and I didn't know, and it took me a while. I did a lot of inner work, I had to do most of it on my own, and I thought like, okay, I was getting to a place, and then I had some experiences that revealed to me like, no, even the career path that you're choosing it's not even for you, which is rooted in trauma.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're picking from this like traumatized place, like your thought pattern and how your vision. I literally did life from 8-year-old scarred.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to look at everything through that lens, and like, once you can give him a break, acknowledge, like for me, I had to acknowledge like, hey, who I had to become was important, because that doesn't get me, without him, without that version of me, I don't get to where I am today.
Yeah.
That nastiness, that path that I had to take was full of pain, man. So I had to be resilient to pain. So obviously you had to be this thing. But now, how do we move forward, man? Like who do you want to be? Who do you have to be to move forward and build this life that you actually want, that you really want for yourself?
Right.
Yeah.
I think there's a really important piece that I've heard other people go through. I know that I went through it, and it's like you start to go through the logical pieces of the work, and you're like, hey, I know I need to forgive my mom.
Mm-hmm.
I know I need to forgive this person. And I used to try to tell myself like, okay, I understand all the things that led up to the decisions that they made that affected me.
Mm.
I understand that wasn't even their fault. They were just operating from the conditions in the best way that they knew how.
Mm.
So logically I understood everything, but I still couldn't feel the forgiveness.
Yeah.
And that took a long time for me.
I feel you, bro.
Did you get there?
Nope.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think about it probably every day,
Yeah.
trying to get to a place where I can like truly forgive my mom,
Mm-hmm.
my mom in particular.
Yeah.
And I try, bro. I mean, I know all the things to do.
Yeah.
I know all the things to do. Look, this forgiveness, all the steps, and I fucking take myself through every single one of these steps. And the very last piece of this step is, can you see her? Can you hug her? Like actually put your arms around her and love her for who she is. And I can never get that. I still can't get to that part. And so they say, if you can't get to that part, you do it again tomorrow, and you do it again, and you do it again. So I am currently and I've been here for a long time trying to figure out a way to fully forgive my mom and like love her. And I don't even know what it looks like, bro, if I'm being honest. I don't know what it sounds like. I try to feel it. Like I try to feel what it would feel like.
But it's like you're trying to search for a feeling that you've never experienced before.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, how could you know what the feeling was?
Right.
Right.
Right. Like what would it look like for her and I to have a good relationship? I have no idea, you know what I mean? I can dream it up, and I can like try to put myself in the emotions that I would have if I had a healthy relationship with her. But there still is like this piece that's missing that I can't quite fill the gaps with just yet. And like we started this thing off saying, it's never over, right? The journey's never over.
It's never over. I think that's a trap too that a lot of people fall they fall into, I know I fell into it, was like, okay, you start becoming aware of this stuff, you start working on it, and then you find out, you uncover more shit.
Yeah.
And then you uncover more shit. And I don't know if you had this experience, but I got like depressed at a point because I was like, I'm a piece of shit and I'm never going to get better because I just keep finding out more shit about me that's wrong.
That awareness is a motherfucker.
Yeah.
That awareness is a motherfucker. And I understand exactly what you're saying. And yeah, I got depressed too. And you know, the weird thing about this weekend that I was telling you about was because it opens up your eyes so well, and it brings a lot of awareness in a very short amount of time. It was it was doing a lot of damage to a lot of dudes, man. Lots of suicide, you know, lots of blowing your family up.
Yeah.
Lots of walking around staring at your belly button. Well, this is me. This is just who I am. This is what God made me. This is why I'm this way. I'm this way because my mom and this, and I am this way because my dad. But there's no way, there's no talk of, it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to walk around like that's not your identity. And so I saw a lot of people get sucked into that depression of awareness and do a lot of bad things inside of it.
Yeah, almost falling like into a sense of nihilism and right, like, so then what's it worth? Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think my cousin committed suicide. He had PTSD, and he was in the Marines. And I think that's where he got to the point where, you know, he started to have some shit with the law and his wife or ex-wife and whatnot, and he just ended up taking a bunch of pills. He was smart enough to know that it just put him to sleep, but he wouldn't wake up. And I think that's where he got to. But why do you think? I don't know. It seems sort of irresponsible. It's like, in the sense, they're doing some really good work, but also irresponsible for the people that were doing the work or guiding men through the work to communicate that message to them or support them in that way that, hey, it's important to understand this stuff that you've gone through and how it's showing up in your life today, but you don't have to be that way.
Yeah. I won't say that the organization was void of that message. They're very aware of the risk involved with what they were doing. There were groups available. There were Facebook groups and actual in-person groups. And I mean, you do your best to mitigate that particular danger for sure. And still people slip through the cracks, right? Like, you still have to take advantage of those things. You still have to do more things, right? And sometimes people come down that mountain, they're like, I got it all figured out now. You know what I mean? I had a great weekend. I know about this, and this. Done. Those are the ones that get in trouble. But if you plug yourself in and you go into like those post-weekend groups that they would have for like sometimes 2-3 years, because they know what's about to happen. Yeah. You know, they know the journey you're about to take if you continue down this road, which I did. I took advantage of the groups. I was in the groups for 2 years. I continuously did the weekend over and over again because I was teaching the weekend. Yeah. So like, I was able to like hear the actual message, which was fainter and softer than the awareness. The awareness is big, and you're like, my mom, and you're on the carpet, and you're going through these physical things, and screaming at your mom or your dad or whoever the fuck hurt you, you know what I mean? And getting the messages out of your head that are weighing you down. Like, that's the big chunk of the weekend. But then we try to insert, now, this and be watch out for this, watch out for this, watch out for this. Mm-hmm. And it just wasn't as loud or aggressive, and it took more time. And the time is what gets in the way of people, because people get, you know, they give up. People fucking give up, man. Like, you start eating away at their time. It's like, oh man, this is inconvenient. Oh, it's too far. Oh, it's too many. It's too many hours and blah blah blah. And then they start to shortchange themselves. Yeah, they shortchange themselves, and then they get stuck in this spin cycle of depression. because
Yeah.
I didn't do the work after. You do something like that, it's big risk, big reward. And so when I started teaching these things, I started to fucking look them in the eye and go, you sure you want to be here?
Mm-hmm.
You sure you want to
Yeah.
be here? This step that you're about to take, your life's not going to get better right away. It's not going to get better for a while. As a matter of fact, it's going to get worse. You're going to become a target. That's what you're going to become. And people will be like, why are you trying to blah, blah, blah? Because I know what this work does. I know the darkness. I know the valley that these guys are about to fucking plummet into. And if they're not fucking aware of it or ready for it, they need to stop right now, because they're going to get stuck down there. And nobody wins. Your family, your children, everybody loses. You get stuck down there. And on the other side of that valley is such greatness and such fucking light that if you fight your way through it, it's going to be an uphill fight. There will be no greater gift you've ever given to the people closest to you. No greater gift.
Yeah, and I think that's something that comes up for me. Like, they think I'm joking when I say this a lot of the times, but people come to me with their problems, and sometimes I'll just, like, I am kind of fucking with them, but there's real truth to it too. I'm like, it's not about you. You know?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm like they're like, oh, I've got this relationship problem, or I don't know who the right person is, or what the right job is, this and that. And I'm like, well, you're thinking about yourself. And you got to get to a place where it's not about you. It's something bigger than yourself. That's hard to comprehend, though, for a lot of people.
Yeah, because people give up on themselves.
Yeah.
They'll give up on themselves. I'll give myself a pass, but if you're fighting for something bigger,
Yeah.
something better.
Which, have you ever read Man's Search for Meaning?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's what he talks about.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, got him through the Holocaust, so it's
Yeah.
got to say something, right?
Right.
This came about, though, because of something that really you reposted, right? And there's two things that I want to talk about, but the first one is, like, I think it had something to do with softness,
Yeah.
you know? And I think the picture that's been painted is, which you were and are, is like a hard dude, right? But maybe you could speak to me about what you posted and the power of being soft, because it sounds like, I can imagine, you know, older version, like, what the fuck are you talking about? The softness stuff, right? Or a lot of these guys, right?
Yeah. I can't quite remember what the exact post was, but I do remember the essence of the post was finishing the journey through and to true masculinity. You have to finishing that journey, and right, almost like right at the very end of it, because the easy stuff is the hard stuff, right? Like I said, I was good at hard things. Like, oh, you learn how to work hard and do all the things and provide and make money and all the things that people think masculinity is. There's this piece at the end of it, and it's so soft and so foreign and so feminine and so beautiful and so full of emotion that most men stop right here. And they don't finish the journey, and they don't go to this place of true masculinity that's rooted in love, rooted in emotional intelligence, rooted in connection, rooted in, like, safety. And that was what I was talking about, and that is the piece in which I have found to move me closer to who I think God created me to be. You know, I am capable of mass violence. You know, I'm a skilled martial artist. I take care of myself. I understand. I understand my capacity for harm and for violence, and I now am fully capable of not only, like, allowing my wife to cry to me, which I didn't used to allow because it would make me uncomfortable, but sitting with her in that place and being man enough to not fix it or to not move her from there. And that's the scariest shit I ever done in my whole life, was travel through this place of exposing myself, place of vulnerability, and actually sharing with her what I'm most terrified of is love. What I'm most terrified is connection. What I'm most terrified of is me showing you what really does hurt me and make me sad, because I'm afraid of the rejection. I'm afraid of the rejection, and this is why I'm afraid of the rejection. You know what I mean? I had to go back to the trauma, like the things, and I've never felt more powerful than right now. I've never felt more powerful than right now, and it came from that vulnerability, that transparency, and that willingness to actually be seen. To actually be seen, and not just this outer layer of me with the tattoos and the cauliflower ear and the fucking muscle, my body. I'm a big guy, but like actually let you see my heart. And I feel more complete and capable now than I ever have in my whole life.
Yeah, what do you think it is about, the aspect of being seen, really seen, and, the vulnerability piece is what you're saying, is like, oh, I want to expose myself of like, hey, here's my insecurities and here's my fears and here's the things that are wrong with me or whatever the story is. You could use that against me, right?
Yeah.
You could leave me or whatever it is. But what do you think about being able to share that and lean into that makes you feel powerful?
So first, it's like my initial fear of it. That initial fear stops a lot of men from doing a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
It reminds me of, I swear to God, when I step into this place, it reminds me of just before I used to walk out to the cage. It's that intense for me, and that terrifying for me it used to be that terrifying for me to tell my wife that I loved her out loud. Instead of just show her through things and actions, for me to say those words, bro, still to this day, I have to like count myself down and shit, dude. Like it is hard for me to expose myself in that way. And the initial step to it is so full of fear that there's an element of pride that I get once I take the step. And then once I take the step, the thing that happens is closeness.
Yeah.
The exact opposite of what I thought was going to happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So instead of the rejection that I'm so terrified of, right? I actually am learning that my transparency and my vulnerability is making people want to be closer to me, which is what was supposed to happen in the first place, but it didn't. And that's okay. You know what I mean? But now I'm at least able to see, no, wait a minute, man. It's fucking scary. Dive into it. Dive into my fear. Makes me feel more stronger as a man. Like I did something scary. I like that. But then this other piece happens, like this piece of, I want to come up alongside you and I want to link arms with you. I want to link arms with you. Like, look at us now. Look, we're all halfway across the country because of a vulnerable post. That's what gives me strength, bro. Like, that's the thing that keeps feeding me every day and going, this is the way. This is the way to true masculinity. This is the way to true, like connection with your brothers and with your other people around you.
Yeah. Doing very formal about the mat, bowing on and off and wearing your belt the right color. And after a session once, we're all lined up and he's like, I want to hear from a couple people about what they're working on. What are they working on? And one guy goes, he's like, oh, I'm working on sitting on my punches or something like that, or I'm working on doing this. And I was like, fuck it. I raised my hand. I'm like, I'm working on being more vulnerable with the people around me. And he was just like, and this isn't a knock on him, I think he knows now, but like, he was like, "What the fuck do you mean vulnerable?" You know? And I was like, yeah. And then we ended, and after, but like one or two guys came up and they're like, "Yo, thank you for that."
Yeah.
You know? And that's been my experience too, is on the other side of that fear is that actual connection. And it's like what people are craving,
I know.
you know?
Yeah.
People are craving that realness, that authenticity, you know?
And it builds community. And right then and there, you're changing the world. You're literally changing your community. And what can be more manly than that? Than actually building a safe place for people to navigate.
Right, which speaks to traditionally like what men have done for thousands of years, and what, you know, some people, evolutionary psychologists, think they call the 3 Ps, right? It's just provide, protect, procreate, which you're providing that safe space. You're protecting, you know, once you get into these circles talking about masculine and femininity, but I think there's some truth to it in that a lot of women don't feel safe to lean into their feminine because the men don't know how to create the safe space for them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's, who would have thunk that that to get to that full circle masculinity, that full circle creation, creating the safe space, you have to travel through this softness. You have to travel through this vulnerability. You have to travel through this opening of yourself and revealing of yourself, so that you can finish the job, man. So that you can finish creating that safe place for, let's say, your wife or your daughters to like be fully feminine in themselves, like fully feminine, fully whoever they want to be, they can become, because you've created this place of safety, this place of trust, and they're allowed to fuck up and win and lose. I'll do all the things, all while you hold them in this thing that you created. And yes, you created it with your hands and your brain, and then you finished it with your heart.
Yeah, we talked about that the other day. I think I mentioned to you, you know, again, coming more from like the Eastern philosophy, that in Buddhism, they talk about the word for mind, right, is chitta, but it's the same word for heart. So they talk about bodhicitta. And I started very in the logical place, and the more that I progress, it's like, no, I'm watching my mind, but I'm leading with my heart, you know? And I think all this stuff is really in line with something that you said to me the other day, is about like, which I found to be true, which is why I leaned into it. And I haven't been motivated to go, I don't know, do a marathon or put a 50K or like squat 300 pounds or something,
right,
which is probably not that much for you, but
right. No, you know, nowadays it is.
I'm like, about a year or two ago, I got very motivated to like lean into what I thought was actually a lot harder, which was the stillness.
100%. 100%. It's, you know, us as men, we get our identity and our affirmation through achievement so often, right? It's always about what we can do, the things you're doing, the money you're making, all the things, right? So it's so easy to get caught up in like, oh, this must be the way, you know? But then it becomes like this thing where we're just accustomed to that. That's the easy part. Like working with my hands and working with my mind, what I can see and like tell myself, oh, that needs to be done. I'm going to go do that, you know? And then this stillness, this quietness that it takes to get to your heart, and this, there's been nothing harder for me, than to lean into doing less, and still feeling the power in that, and feeling the love in that, and feeling the protection in that, and feeling the provision in that. Like, who feels like they're providing when they're doing less? Almost no one.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. But we're getting into this place, or at least I have lately, where I am actually providing. I am providing the space for them to be, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's, oof. I mean, that's such a profound statement that I think a lot of people probably just don't even understand, right? It's like, I think I got to do all these things for you, but in reality, a lot of people, again, coming to that connection piece, it's like, actually, if I can just, what I really is a gift is the presence. I think that's what we're getting at.
Yeah, bro. I'm just so grateful and thankful to have kept drinking.
You get the cool, yeah.
Kept drinking the Kool-Aid. You know,
Yeah.
I could have stopped. You know, and I'm just thankful that I haven't, and that I'm still drinking, and I'm still learning, and I'm still leaning in toward the discomfort, and still doing the hard things, but they feel so much different. You know what I mean? It's doing less that's hard now.
Yeah. That's good. To your point, that is the hardest piece for so many men, right? Like doing the hard things, right? The hard things, but it's like, I'm like, that's not hard if that's the thing that you like to do, or that's the thing that you're good at. It's facing the thing that you're scared of,
Yeah.
or that you don't want to do, that you feel that resistance. I mean, I even see it, you know, now I work with Air Force guys, and I see special operations guys, and I've seen the Marines, and I'm like, I'm not impressed anymore. I don't care what story you got for me. I'm like, I'm really not impressed, because I've seen a ton of you that can do the hard things, but you can't do the hardest piece, which is confront your fear and your insecurities. You know? Yeah.
Or even acknowledge that they're there.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah, I've seen a lot of men in that space where oh, there's nothing wrong with me. I think the challenge, though, that I do see is if you swing to the other side of the pendulum, and then you get some men that are just, they're all emotion and softness, right?
Yeah.
And it's got to be this sort of balance you have to have. And I don't know if I would choose like to be and build up the resilience to the point where you build up this wall and then you have to do the work to break down the wall. Or do you start off, I think it's almost easier to do that than it is to start off with softness and build resilience.
I 100% think it's way harder, because one of them is actually you're stepping into less. You're stepping into stillness. You're stepping into quietness. You're stepping into yourself. And the other one is, I have to learn how to go be a warrior. I have to learn how to be a protector. Dude, if you have to learn how to be a warrior and a protector too late in life, I 100% believe that is the more challenging of the two situations, because one of them takes so much more effort, so to speak, so much more bumps and bruises and like physicality and like falling down, recognizing, you know, can you get up when you fall down? Like there's an element of like learning to be a warrior that, in my opinion, has to be done or should be done at a younger age when we're more resilient to the rebound. You know what I mean? The bump in our head on the floor and getting back up. Like if you're 45 trying to figure that out, bro, like what's the method? How are we going to do it? How are we going to do it and you be able to move and walk tomorrow and walk forward? You know what I mean? Like, and there are ways, like I think jiu-jitsu is a really good way, because it's such a gentle art. You know, it can be gentle. It's not gentle if you're rolling around with Curtis Blades or anything, but it can be a very gentle, safe way to expose yourself to the resistance, like physical and mental resistance. You're not going to want to go. Are you going to go? Okay. You're losing. You're on bottom. You can't breathe. Who are you in that moment? You know what I mean? It's a safe place to be able to build this thing that we're speaking of later on in life. That is, you know, you have to have it. You have to have it. If you're a woman, if my daughters, if they bring a girl over here, dude.
Yeah. I can't imagine having you as a role model. I feel like they know better, but 100% agree with you. It's like, if you can't defend your fucking self, how do I expect you to take care of my family?
Exactly, dude.
You know?
Kidding me? So that's what I'm looking for. First, the other piece of it, I think, can come with wisdom, and it can come with age. Whereas, like, that warrior aspect, if it's not built at a young age where you're resilient, your body and your mind are resilient to the stimulus, like, it's not like you're gonna grow into being able to do. As you age, that capacity shrinks, and then this emotional intelligence, as you age and as you go through life, and the failures and the ups and downs and all the things, it actually increases your capacity for emotional intelligence. So you have a much better chance of actually traveling through this thing. But if you're trying to do this shit that you should have done 10 years, you know what I mean? There's ways, but it's hard.
You're getting ready to walk you and Curtis are getting ready to walk for this title fight. And you brought up this thing to me, which I think is pretty cool. I'm curious, how long ago was that when you wrote on your, was it the mirror that you said you wrote on, you're going to be a world champion?
I wrote that thing down in 2010.
Yeah. Wow. Been a long journey.
And I thought it was over.
Yeah.
I thought that dream was gone. And I never quit on it. I never quit on the dream, right? Like I dreamt the dream, and like the path to get there I thought was in my control, but it wasn't. You know what I mean? And so once I surrendered that, I forgot about the dream, you know, to be honest. I written it down in 2010, but I forgot about it. And I think me forgetting about it or trying to stop being in control of how it should look like actually opened up the space for it to fucking come to fruition. And now I'm traveling in 3 weeks to go fight for a title as a coach. Yeah. Who would have thought this? Who would have dreamt this up?
And something to the relinquishing control is, I think, really beautiful and important there. Yeah. But, you know, with all this work that you've talked about, and I do want to wrap up, but I'm just curious, you know, I know that you've begun to insert this into the work that you do now with the fighters and coaching people and mentoring people. And I know we've had this moment together where we look at some dudes and we just kind of like, he's got the talent, right? But the mentality there is not there, or the emotion, or they got the wall, right? And they're not receptive to like, let me just learn. I don't know. What would you say to people that are on, like, starting their journey right now? Or what would you say to, you know, even some of the fighters that you see are like, you know, they're talented, but they got that ego, and that's going to be that will be the demise probably, you know?
What I would say is, you know, they all have this dream. They all have a dream, a vision of the future. A vision of the future that they can see themselves, you know, winning this fight or winning that fight or having a belt or two, who knows. They all have that part down. What most of them have no clue about is the parts of them that are going to try to sabotage this dream. They have no clue about their own darkness. And I'm not talking about their capability for violence either. I'm talking about their darkness. The thing that they hide from everybody. They hide it, they repress it, they deny it. It's not there, it's not there, it's not there. And then all of a sudden it's there and it goes boom! And it blows your whole life up, or it fucking has you not being willing to do whatever the thing is that the result of it is. You know, I don't know. But not enough of these guys know enough about themselves and how they got to where they're at to keep the darkness from sabotaging their dreams. And so it just keeps going in a circle, and you do your best. You do your best to pull it out, but that's real work, and it cannot be a desire of anybody else other than you to actually get to the end of that work. And so if you give me a guy who knows what he's capable of and knows exactly the parts of him that are going to try to trip him up every day, he knows him so well that he can see him coming a mile away and stop it from actually coming to fruition, that guy's going to be a fucking champion. But the guy who has no fucking clue on why this happened, I have no idea why I won't go to practice, coach. I have no idea why I don't believe in myself, coach. I have no idea about this. It's like, well, you better fucking figure it out. You better figure it out, because it's really easy to dream about the glory of this stuff. It's really easy to dream about belts and money and big houses and fancy cars and all this stuff. But you better understand your own capacity for darkness, your own capacity to fuck yourself up. The role you play in your own bullshit. You better know about it. You better know about it, dude, and you better know about it well. Otherwise, it's doomed to keep repeating itself over and over and over again, and you'll never get anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
You got it.